Anya.
Thanks, Anya.
Okay, Aisling, you're live.
Good morning, everybody, and you're most welcome today. Today being it's the fourth of our autumn webinar programme with our colleagues Catherine Clemavani, Director of Operations in the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland, and Anya Halligan, Executive Director in the RCSI. My name is Aisling Culhane. I'm the Research and Development Advisor for the Psychiatric Nurses Association. And you're most welcome to today's webinar, which is very interesting. It's from Catherine will introduce our speakers formally shortly in a second. But what I just wanted to introduce is the fact that this is a campaign that's been ongoing across our health services called the Get Up, Get Dressed, Get Moving. In this instance, we're going to look at this campaign and its relevance, indeed progressing it throughout our mental health services. A colleague of mine is hugely involved in it, and those of us who worked and have worked in the care of the elderly facilities will resonate in terms of where we are and how we can use this approach in terms of motivational piece, not just for care of the elderly mind, but also in terms of our approach for recovery and the work that we do with our clients and patients who sometimes find it a little bit difficult to get motivated, and particularly depending on the environment in which they are, and indeed this particular time obviously of COVID. So really my job this morning is to welcome you. You are most welcome as always to our webinars, and this is our fourth one on this series, as I said, and we'll have another one for you next week also. But it's warming just to see the interest and indeed the activity involved after our webinar. So without further ado, I'll pass you to Catherine Clemavani, Director of Operations in North CSI, who's going to formally introduce our speakers. Thank you.
Hello everybody, welcome. Delighted to see there's over 10 of you now logged on, and another few I hope will attend. So it gives me great pleasure. We may be a little minute late now this morning because I'll explain. So it does give me great pleasure, as Aisling said, to welcome our speakers. So we have Dr. Denise Rogers, and Denise is a clinical psychologist in mental health and intellectual disability services in Waterford and Wexford, and she also works with the Department of Psychiatry in Waterford. She undertook her BSc in psychology in Queen's University, and that was followed up then by a postgraduate diploma in statistics in Trinity. She has an MSc in applied psychology from the University of Ulster at Georgetown, and she has a PhD from UL, the University of Limerick, and that's in clinical psychology. So very well qualified obviously, and we're delighted to have her here today to share her expertise. Now unfortunately, Deirdre Lang, who's the Director of Services for Older Person Services in the HSE, was meant to be here this morning, but unfortunately Deirdre has been called away and sends her sincere apologies that she cannot attend this morning. And what we're trying to do at the minute, just to support Denise has a colleague, Evan Matthews. He's a research fellow in Waterford in the School of Nursing there in the Waterford Institute of Technology. So she's just trying to get him to come online and get him sorted up behind the scenes, just that she has a bit of support. So just while we wait for that, I just want to tell you about the questions and answers. When this goes onto the speakers, there's a little bar on your screen that you'll be able to input questions and answers. So please feel free to pop in questions, and then we will present them then to Denise at the end, and hopefully Evan if he's there. And the other thing is Anya's going to put up a Microsoft Forms. It's a form, a link that you click, so that again, if you'd like a certificate of attendance, these programs are all approved by the Nursing and Midwifery Board of Ireland and have continuing education units. So just pop in your name. We definitely need your name and your email in order to be able to send you the certificate. So that will be really, really marvellous. And as Aisling said, the Faculty of Nursing and Midwifery is absolutely delighted to collaborate with the PNA and bring you this series of webinars. And just while I'm waiting, I'm conscious now that you are being patient, and I'm really grateful. But just to flag to you our next few events. So later this week, now I don't know how we ended up with two on the 1 week, but hopefully some of you will attend. Fionnuala MacLiam is going to deliver a programme on assertiveness and nurses, and again she uses assertiveness in a lot of the groups, and a useful session because I attended it 1 year, and just for my own sake, even the assertiveness information was really, really valuable. And Fanula, as many of you will know, is a registered advanced nurse practitioner in that area. On the 18th of November, which is next week, we have mental health assessment with Dr. Coleman Noctur. So lots of people have attended this program over the years. It's really, really well evaluated. Many of you will know Coleman. He's on radio and national airwaves talking about often children and family issues. And this really focuses on the whole physical or the mental health assessment, again, that you're going to be undertaking with your patients. So definitely one that may be of interest, and we'd be delighted if you spread the word with your colleagues, especially some of your younger colleagues too. That might be a nice one for people who are new to the whole area. And then we move on to the end of November. On the 24th, we have best practice in the screening monitoring of individuals for metabolic syndrome. The factors related to chronic disease, mental health and diabetes, and then physical screening on the 9th of December for people with mental illness. What is it, how it can help, and how it can be implemented. So many of you will know Dr. Angela Coleman, who's in DCU, and her colleague Dr. Sheila Wickham. So those programs have a much more focus on chronic, many of the conditions, the chronic diseases that you're seeing now and working and managing in your patients. So hopefully those will be of appeal to you, and you will be in a position to log on. So I'm just going to check with Anya now just to see how we're getting on behind the scenes. Thank you for bearing with us now, and apologies for this delay. Anya, how are we getting on? It could be myself and Anya, or myself and Aisling could be delivering frailty.
I'm just on the phone with Evan now at the moment. So
great.
Denise, would you be happy to start, and then I'll let you know if we have Evan online when you need him.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody.
Oh, that's great.
Perfect.
Now I'm going to pass you over to Dr. Denise Rogers. And Denise, thank you so much. I know there was a change to the last minute plans, and we're absolutely delighted that your colleague Evan Matthews will pop on. So enjoy the program, and thank you so much, everybody.
Sorry, Denise, do you just want to put up your slides there?
Absolutely, yeah. Can you see them there now?
So I'm just looking at an Irish Times website at the moment.
Okay, we'll close that down. And that's okay. I'm just going to open it up again.
There's over 14 people there now, Denise, so that's just marvellous.
Sorry, Denise, can you just reshare your screen there? I think you're just gone on mute there, sorry.
Yeah, no, there we go.
Perfect.
And
perfect.
There we go.
Now I'm just looking at a folder.
And are we there?
No, it's not showing me your slides. When you click on share, if you go back out, and when you click on share, can you click on the link that has your slide? Can you click on your slides in PowerPoint?
No. So open share tray. We'll open up the folder here again. And now we have PowerPoint opening up. Is that working for people?
No, I'm not seeing your slides. I'll tell you what, Denise, I'll share the slides maybe. And then if
I think that'll be good, and then I'll just that's
okay, perfect. Okay. Just bear with me one moment.
It'll be worth the wait, everybody.
Thanks a million.
We'll start off this morning with what would have been Deirdre's piece, which is get up, get dressed, get moving. It's never too late. And then we're going to move on from that, I suppose, into my experience of involvement with the get up, get dressed, get moving movement. Okay. Great. Thanks a million. Okay.
Now, if you, can you see those slides, Denise?
I can, that's perfect.
Oh, brilliant. Okay,
Thanks,
perfect.
Okay, so Get Up, Get Dressed, Get Moving, it's a national network, and we'll tell you a little bit about it this morning, and as Evan comes on, he'll also be able to share his insights. To start off, there is a video on slide 2, and Anya, I think you've put that up for people to access. If we could just start off with the video, and then we'll come back.
Okay, so I've just popped video 1 there in the Q&A, so you should all be able to click on it. It's a Vimeo link. Thanks.
Has that come up for everybody in the Q&A? Sorry, Anya, can you hear me?
Yes, that's in the Q&A. So if you just want to give now, I can put it on the screen. Of course, it won't play video, but it should take. Let me just get the time of the video up here. So. Yeah, so it's a 2.5-minute video there.
Okay.
So maybe if we come back to people maybe at 17 minutes past 11.
Mm-hmm. It's a pity now I can't get that up here. I can't see it.
Sorry, did you just click share screen there? Just it's sharing.
Me? Sorry.
Yes. No, it's okay. I think you shared your screen there. Just
okay.
I'll go back to mine. It's just Catherine's head popped up.
Is there a way of checking if everybody's back, Anya?
It's only if people comment. Yes, so someone has commented to say that yes, they can see the link. Claire Flanagan, so that's great. Yeah, it's just if people can do that along the way, if they can let us know, that'd be great. And just while they're watching the video, just to remind them to log in on the link at the beginning of the Q&A, and that's just to receive a cert with their CPD points.
Okay, we're at 11:17.
Great. Yeah. Are you happy to move on?
Well, absolutely. Yeah.
Lovely. So just move on to slide 3 there.
Okay. So we've a growing ageing population in Ireland, and it's something that we need to be really mindful of for ourselves and services. There's quite a lot of information on the slide here, but if we think about how this reflects within our own services, and the if we just move on to the next slide. Please, Anya, thanks a million. And how we perceive ageing within our services. So the most challenging expression of population ageing is frailty. I love this slide. Both of these ladies are the same age, yet how they appear are very different. And I suppose ultimately a key takeaway from today is that chronological is not the same as biological aging, and that there is an awful lot within our power in terms of affecting not only how we age, but also those who we support. Next slide, please. Sorry, Anya, next slide, please. Thank you. So what is frailty? Frailty involves the complex intermingling of biological, social and cognitive factors that negatively impact an individual's ability to independently complete their activities of daily living. Frailty is a science. Next slide, please. So if we think about the interplay here between genetics, environmental factors and cumulative cellular damage, and let's consider decreased reserve, poor nutrition, decreased physical activity. There's an increased vulnerability to frailty. There's a stress or an event leading to instability, falls, incontinence, changes in cognition. And we see this working in mental health services. Thank you. If we consider frailty as a long-term condition, we begin to apply internationally established models and implement evidence-based care. Next slide, please, Anya. So we need to think about it, understand it and recognise it, and plan for how we will support and care for those in our community and in our hospital. We need to try and future-proof our delivery of healthcare services for people who will be using it. Frailty is the most problematic expression of population ageing. Frailty is a distinctive health state related to the ageing process in which multiple body symptoms gradually lose their inbuilt reserves. We know it when we see it, but recognising it and doing something about it has got to become a core part of our business, as over the last decade, some 40% of the increase in emergency admissions is from over 65s. 65 to 69-year-olds at 4%, 70 to 74-year-olds at 7%, 75 to 79-year-olds at 9%, 80 to 84-year-olds at 16%, and over 85 to 26%. Over the last decade, some 40% of the increase in emergency admissions is from over 65s. Frailty is a distinctive health state related to the ageing process in which multiple body systems gradually lose their inbuilt reserves. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So frailty is a long-term condition then. Frailty shares the features of the typical long-term conditions. 25 to 50% of people over 80 years, we're seeing this as common. It's costly at an individual and societal level and typically progressive, but not always. It is potentially modifiable and can result in episodic crisis. Next slide, please. So if we consider frailty as a long-term condition, we begin to apply internationally established models and implement evidence-based care. Next slide, please. So if we look at functional decline in acutely admitted patients greater than age 75 years, and if you look at the darkest, which is baseline, then on admission and then on discharge. If you go across the bottom, you see bathing, dressing, mobility, transfers, toileting, eating. Next slide, please. So one study highlighted that 65% of older people were deconditioned after just 48 hours of being in hospital, and of those 67% failed to improve before discharge and 10% deteriorated further. Next slide, please. Older people in hospital have a 23.3% risk of being unable to return home and requiring nursing home placement simply because they have lost the ability in some basic activity of daily living during even a short hospitalisation. We have to wonder what our role is in this. Evidence suggests that up to 50% of older people become incontinent within 24 hours of hospital admission. Now, while I'm acutely mindful that we're talking a lot about acute hospitals here, we will speak a little bit about how this bears to our own experience, specifically in mental health. But we also have to look at people that come in for respite or come into inpatient and mental health units. And what are we doing to support maintenance of ADLs? Next slide, please. So deconditioning, what we know. 60% of immobile older patients had no medical reason that they required bed rest. We've known that a 50% increase in walking while in hospital has been associated with a 6% shorter length of stay. The research suggests that 48% of people over 85 die within 1 year of hospital admission, and 47% of delayed transfers of care in one study related to deconditioning. Next slide, please. So this is a really useful graphic. Now, the first time I saw this graphic, I thought about the DBT house, which I'm sure some people will be familiar with, completed DBT training. But if we take a closer look at COVID-19 containment measures and think about how they have impacted. So we talk about the importance of getting up, getting dressed, getting moving, but measures this year have seen people's ability and potential to do that greatly impacted. We've had social distancing, quarantine, self-isolation, travel restrictions. And there has been that fear of person-to-person transmission via respiratory droplets. We've seen lifestyle behaviour change, reduced physical activity, reduced step count, increased sitting time and increased screen time. We've seen an increase in stress and anxiety and a decrease in sleep quality. We've seen more eating, more snacking, a greater consumption of processed foods, and a reduction in protein intake. We're seeing reduced sun exposure and we're seeing appetite dysregulation. If we think about the mechanisms of muscle loss, we've got reduced vitamin D, we've got insulin sensitivity, we've got increased cortisol, we've got increased oxidative stress. And if we think about the interplay then, when we think about acute body composition changes, normal muscle mass, sarcopenia and obesity. Now, again, this is not my area of expertise when it comes to being a psychologist, but these are what issues that I've become acutely aware from a number of different experiences in my career, both working in the field of intellectual disability, where individuals have increased risk of non-communicable diseases, sedentary behaviour, and also working in older adult mental health for a time, where you could see the impact on people's functioning take hold quite quickly. And if we think about long-term health risks, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, osteoporosis and fractures, cognitive decline and depression, physical frailty, reduced quality of life. Now we have to think about the mental health population, because the mental health population are already at higher risk of experiencing these. Now all of these will lead to an increased risk of COVID-19. Next slide, please. Muscle mass and strength vary across a lifetime, with the maximum levels at about 40 years, which is higher in men than women, and then gradually decreasing, especially beyond the age of 50 years, with muscle mass being lost at 1 to 2% per year and strength at 1.5 to 5% a year. The further acceleration of muscle decline occurs at 65 to 80. The top line here indicates less reduction in muscle strength in individuals with a high level of physical activity. Muscle strength loss accelerates more rapidly with muscle disuse, as per the bottom line, which can lead to low physical performance and even disability. As has been discussed before, muscle quality is one of the factors which affects mobility and physical performance. If not detected early, it leads to mobility impairment, disability, falls, hospitalisation, institutionalisation and mortality. If we consider the decreased muscle mass and strength as one of the factors of developing physical frailty, the early detection of mobility decline, intervention and prevention is crucial to help avoid the individual developing frailty early in life. So if we look at the diagram, we can see that for prevention to be successful, the intervention needs to be initiated early in life and maintained. And we have to remember that the aging process correlates with biological age and not chronological age. If you think back to the earlier slide, both women, same age, appearing extremely different. Therefore, this is relevant when considering frailty. The important fact which emerges from this analysis is a superior function of active individuals relative to sedentary individuals. And I don't know about yourself, but when I attended a Tilda education day that addressed this area of muscle strength, I remember I went home thinking, right, I have a short amount of time now to really build up muscle strength that will go on a natural course of decline from the age of 40 to 45. So there again, this is not to say that all muscle will decline. We can still maintain it. It's just that we have to work harder to do it. And it's really important that we do it when we think about the role that muscle strength plays. Next slide, please. So I think we're okay. So this is just when we talk about muscle mass, and again, you know, personally and professionally, everybody can't help but be impacted when you look at this slide. So if you just click again there on you, it'll give the age ranges just for the particular muscle mass, and because we get to compare here a 74-year-old sedentary male at the top compared with our 70-year-old triathlete from our earlier slide compared to a 40-year-old triathlete, and it's quite stark really when you look at the cross-sectional images there. Next slide, please, Anya. So the question is, who's your future older self, and who are the future older selves that we are hoping to support through our work? Next slide, please. So we have another video, which I'd just like you to take a look at. It's a little bit longer than the initial video, and it just reminds, I suppose, of the impact that you can have in supporting somebody's functioning.
Hey everyone, I've just popped that into the Q&A, so you should be able to watch it there.
Thanks, Anya.
If you want to take a few minutes, thank you.
Anya, do you have a timer on that video? I think it's 6 minutes, is it?
So it's just 5.5 minutes. So yeah, it maybe at 11:37, and we can move on to the slides now.
Evan didn't have any joy coming on there on, you know.
I'm afraid not, Denise. I wasn't able to get him online. I'm not sure what the issue was there because he had the same credentials. So, yeah, it's just one of those days. But look, we'll keep going. That's Denise, we're just at 37 minutes past 11. Are you happy to continue?
Yeah, absolutely.
Lovely. Okay.
Okay, if we just go to the next slide then, please, Anya. So a movement is born. You've heard me say already, get up, get dressed, get moving. It's a network. It's a movement. It's what we need to do. So where did it come from? So some of you may know about Professor Brian Dolan, and if you are on social media or have heard about the movement of NPJ paralysis, it would have been Brian that would have coined this. So it started with a tweet. And who would have thought it would have led to this? So the tweet was, nursing was born in the church and raised in the army, so leaving patients in pyjamas is their uniform. And within days, the hashtag NPJ paralysis was coined. If you go to the next slide, please, Anya. So get up, get dressed, get moving developed from this. The purpose? To create a scalable, sustainable model of get up, get dressed, get moving that can be adopted and implemented at home, in the community and across all health and social care settings. Next slide, please, Anya. This has now grown into an expansive network. We've representation, as you can see, reflected in the logos on screen from across health, social and community settings. Next slide, please, Anya. What we have is a national steering group with working groups. And Get Up, Get Dressed, Get Moving is built on 4 pillars: home, community, residential and acute hospital. And a little bit later on this morning, I'll tell you a little bit more about how we'd like mental health to be firmly placed within that one of those pillars. It's for all adults living in Ireland who access health and social care, and is built on the foundation of MEC, making every contact count, and social prescribing. Next slide, please, Anya. So the working groups then, in addition to our steering group, are communications, resources, and education. And by virtue of the fact that this is a network, people can decide the amount of input or involvement that they can give at any time. Next slide, please, Anya. So the question is, get up, get dressed, get moving. There is a need to act now. And for us, I suppose, to consider the role of mental health services as part of that movement. So we're going to move on now into the next part of the presentation, which was originally my part of the presentation this morning. And Anya, if you wouldn't mind changing the slide again. So folks, I just wanted to thank you for bearing with us this morning. I think we're well used to working in mental health services to high pressure environments and responding in the moment to whatever challenge arises for us. So this morning will be no different. So I am Dr. Denise Rogers. I work as a senior clinical psychologist in Waterford Wexford Mental Health Services, and I'm going to tell you a little bit this morning about my experience being involved with Get Up, Get Dressed, Get Moving, the national network. So I sit on the Get Up, Get Dressed, Get Moving steering group, and I'm also involved in the working groups. And I've learned so much from being involved in this process. Often I feel working in mental health, we don't get the chance to engage in many national initiatives. We're often working in the high pressure, under-resourced environments, and we barely get to get our heads above water. This is something that really called to me, and I saw as part of my role that it itself is quite expansive, and I was keen to find national initiatives that would not only support me in my role and have that applicability across the groups with which I work. So the key learnings for me this morning that I want to share with you this morning from being involved with the network are: one, that I've learned to not be attached to a particular outcome, and secondly, the importance of those people who we surround ourselves with. So to start, I'm going to tell you a little story, and Anya, we might cut back to slide 26 if that's okay. So it's just a little bit, and back again, Anya, that's great, thanks a million. And just forward to the black and white drawing, Anya, sorry. That's it. Okay. So there was a French inventor in the 19th century, and he invented this device. He got a patent in 1851. It was the phonautograph. It could record sound waves. Fantastic device. Really ingenious. Edison famously invented the phonograph 25 years later, and we've only ever heard about Edison. We've never heard about Edward. But Edison was a whole generation after Edward. Why was this? Well, you see, Edward forgot one key feature that turned out to be pretty much a highly sought after addition in audio recording equipment: playback. And we'll come back to that story a little later on. We can go to the next slide, please, Anya. So as the slide reads, the only time you should ever look back is to see how far you've come. And I'm moving now from one story to another, and that of mental health services in Ireland, because we've come a really long way. And we've seen considerable change within our lifetime, both within the services we provide and within society as a whole and how it responds to mental health. And it's important to acknowledge, yes, how far we've come, but it's also really important to look back just to make sure that we don't make those same mistakes again. So if we just go to the next slide, please, Anya. So I'm going to ask you now to take a look at this short video. It evolved from a document that was found by Rosita Boland in 2016. And she uncovered this document and went on to write a series of articles in the Irish Times. And it is the document was written by somebody that came to work in St. Ita's in Portrane in 1955, and it really told of how people were kept on the margins of society. It included reference to a letter of a young man named Gerald, which is quite poignant. And it's a fluent but sad letter, and it's dated September 1st in 1912, and he was admitted in April of 1901, apparently an embarrassment to his family, who were making good matches and good business. And a sum was paid for him to be kept in comfort in the asylum and to have no contact with his family. And what was especially heartbreaking was Gerald died in the winter in 1949, unsung, no fuss, in a little wooden coffin, and no relatives present. Only the son of a doctor who had returned from the army. And it was to this man that Gerald had taught chess when he was a child. So I'm just going to ask you to take a quick look at the video, and then we'll come back. If that's okay, Anya, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes, about 5 minutes.
Great.
So we'll come back at about 10 to 12.
Excellent. Thanks a million.
Thank you.
So folks, we might come back now, Anya, if that's okay?
Yeah, perfect.
All right, great. Okay. So I might actually just go back to the other slide. Sorry, Anya, just to say, folks, you may notice when you see on this slide, yeah, we do have 2 photos that were attached to St. Ita's in Portrane, but I've also added on the slide an aerial image of, I suppose, our own former inpatient unit down here in Wexford, St. Senan's, because I'm sure when we hear the stories of Portrane and we hear the stories of different service users that would have experienced different settings, and staff that would have worked in those settings, we will all have our Portrane, we will all have our St. Senan's. We would have grown up near them and been very aware of them, and I suppose they did signify how services were, and a good reminder, I suppose, you know, for us about how far that we have come. And that's not to negate, there was an awful lot of good that happened, and but it's just to see that now we have moved forward. And maybe just to move on to the next slide, you know, that we now have a whole person approach to recovery. This has been a complete societal shift, as we know, and there's been a growth in interest in concerted efforts to increase understanding of mental health. We've made significant strides in service development, and we now talk about person-centred care, trauma-informed care, and recovery models. A modern vision for recovery is based on a set of core values which can be identified as central to a decent quality of life, and you'll see them in the wheel here: treatment, accommodation, education and training, social, cultural, spiritual factors, finance and money, parenting, caring, work, occupation, physical well-being, personal care. These 8 components that have been identified, which together comprehensively encompass the important areas in a person's life. They allow us to ask the question, what matters to you? It's recommended that individuals and those who care for them consider all of these components in order to effectively address their needs and to help in the recovery process. Next slide, please, Anna. So I'm not going to ask you to watch this video just yet. I'm going to talk a little bit about it first, because we're at a point that is really exciting for mental health services. Physical activity is strongly recommended for the prevention and treatment of several non-communicable diseases. There's vast evidence base concerning the relationship between physical activity and mental health. We need to make concerted efforts to target those most at risk. And according to the OECD in 2018, 18.5% of the Irish population experienced mental health difficulties. So what does this mean in terms of factors that we need to consider? Because people with mental health difficulties demonstrate poor physical health, a greater risk of frailty, higher level of physical health comorbidities, may experience a shorter life expectancy, a higher morbidity. A recent article highlighted that maybe people with mental health difficulties have a shorter life expectancy of between 17 to up to 30 years. That's quite significant. People with mental health difficulties are more likely to live a sedentary lifestyle. They're more likely to live in restrictive environments. And for the 1.4% of the population, according to the CSO in 2016, who have an intellectual disability, they are even more at risk of this. They are also more likely to develop a mental health difficulty. It's estimated that 50% of people with a moderate to severe intellectual disability may require mental health intervention. People with intellectual disability are 3 times more likely to die from an avoidable cause. And folks, only 9% of people with intellectual disability reach the recommended activity levels, according to Dario et al. 2016. This is versus 30 to 40% of the general population. And we know that people with mental health difficulties do not reach the recommended activity levels. The role of physical health and activity is receiving more attention within mental health services. Last year saw the launch of Improving Physical Health and Mental Health initiative, which includes physical health assessment, relevant referral pathways, and Let's Get Active guidelines for staff to support service users to engage in physical activity. And there are pockets of inspiration I see when I look within our mental health services, and I'm sure you will too. However, we still have a way to go before physical activity is truly integrated into how mental health services are delivered. So in this video, Dr. Rosenbaum talks about the important role of exercise as an integrated component in care, in maintaining positive mental health and well-being, and helping people who may be experiencing psychological distress or symptoms of mental illness. So Anya, if you wouldn't mind copying that link into the Q&A section for people just to have a look.
Yep, that's in the Q&A section now, and that's about 3 minutes.
Super. So I might just check if people are back there now.
Okay, are you happy for me to move on with the slides?
That'd be great. Thanks a million. So folks, the surge in interest in the role of physical activity in mental health is not just in the academic arena. We're seeing literature base quickly becoming into the public domain. And as recently as last week, on November 4th, Matthew Herring from UL and colleagues had their work published as a focus of their original work that they published a month ago, published again in the New York Times as the focus of an article. They found that a basic program of lunges, lifts, squats and crunches eased anxiety levels in healthy young men and women. Now, we know there's no one-size-fits-all approach, and that the approach needs to be person-centred. So next slide, please, Bonnie. To support this in the Southeast, we're lucky enough to have, hopefully, the first of many integrated exercise practitioners in a collaborative project with WIT, Sport Active Wexford and the HSE, funded by Slow Hunch Care Integration Fund. So the aim is to support individuals who use mental health services to explore and integrate physical activity as part of their recovery, as well as supporting people to get started. The integrated exercise practitioner will work with individuals to help them connect with and stay involved in community-based physical activity as part of their individual self-management plan for mental and physical well-being. So we actually have a photo here of Anna, who this is Anna Flynn, our exercise practitioner, so she agreed to be included in the presentation. We've also been very lucky in MHID in Wexford because Anna had actually completed specialist training in MHID settings in Canada. So we were very lucky to be able to tap into her expertise, and with her support it really highlighted untapped potential of many of the service users that we support. So next slide please, Sonia. So this brings me on to an article by Evan Matthews, who unfortunately wasn't able to come online this morning. But the article was published quite recently, and it's the next step, a strategic focus on physical activity and sedentary behaviour in Irish mental health care. So Evan, as we said previously, he's another member of the Get Up, Get Dressed, Get Moving steering group, and he's a prolific collaborator with us down here in CH05, including Healthy Campus initiatives and creative arts initiatives and other developments in the area of Get Up, Get Dressed, Get Moving in mental health. And Evan and colleagues summarised that people with severe mental illness have dramatically reduced life expectancy compared with the general population, which is largely attributed to physical comorbidity. Physical activity and sedentary behaviour interventions offer a safe and viable therapeutic resource for multidisciplinary mental health teams. The accumulating evidence supporting the role of these interventions has changed the focus of mental health strategy in some countries, with new developing roles for certain mental health professionals in the field. However, in Ireland, the absence of specialised exercise practitioners places a leadership role for mental health nurses in this regard. National mental health strategy in Ireland should prioritise physical activity and sedentary behaviour interventions, make recommendations for the integration of specialised exercise practitioners in all mental health multidisciplinary teams, and recommend the provision of training and awareness for mental health nurses and other multidisciplinary professionals who are already well placed to address this issue. Next slide, please, Anya. So this is a story about 4 people named Everybody, Somebody, Anybody and Nobody. There was an important job to be done and everybody was asked to do it. Everybody was sure somebody would do it. Anybody could have done it, but nobody did it. Somebody got angry about that because it was everybody's job. Everybody thought that anybody could do it, but nobody realised that everybody wouldn't do it. It ended up that everybody blamed somebody when nobody did what anyone could have done. Physical activity and mental health can be everybody's business. Probably why you have a psychologist on here this morning talking about frailty. Things can work better that way. There are barriers for people to engage in exercise and for the integration of exercise into mental health services, and it's really important that our attitude doesn't become one of them. There are many things not in our control, but it's really surprising the potential that is within our grasp. Next slide, please, Anya. So Get Up, Get Dressed, Get Moving is not just about exercise. It's about the whole person and what matters to them. It's about what can help people regain parts of themselves that they have lost or awaken parts of themselves they never knew they had. It's about what can make them alive inside. Now, many of you may have seen recently the video of the Spanish ballerina who, when the music was played, recounted the kinesthetic movement, her dance movements that she would have performed. But some years ago, this video came out, and I just want to share a trailer of it with you this morning. So if you wouldn't mind, Anya again, if that could go into the Q&A, and if people could have a look.
Yeah, that's the Q&A now.
Thanks, man.
It's about 7 minutes long, so will we come back?
It's worth
at
it, folks. It's worth it.
11 minutes past. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, thanks a minute. Okay, Anya, we might come back if that's okay.
Yep, great. I'll just move on.
So we might go deep. Great. So many of the people that I work with have spent most of their lives in institutional care and have complex histories and are at great risk of psychological and physical health problems. The more opportunities that we can provide people to get up, get dressed and get moving, the more choice they will have about what they want their lives to look like. This means awakening their ability to choose, feel, think and do what society has previously denied them the freedom of. Next slide, please, Anya. So I've been warned not to embarrass some of the people that I'm working with, so I might just mention a couple of names, but I think of the changes that colleagues and I have seen since our efforts were refueled by Get Up, Get Dressed, Get Moving. In Havenview, a mental health and intellectual disability unit in Wexford, Mick Mann, CNM2 and Mark O'Gorman, staff nurse, are both on the Get Up, Get Dressed, Get Moving network. And they're examples of those individuals who throughout our services champion this change. Working with CNM2s across MHID residences, we have seen individuals who previously spent most of their time alone, still, blankly staring, with little socially appropriate acknowledgement of others, engaged in a high number of incidents, now smiling and waving when others approach. Individuals' eyes lighting up in response to engaging in meaningful activity, be it brushing a horse or sharing a joke. I recall the surprise we all felt when individuals would initiate an extra lap in a charity marathon that they were inspired to run. And the joy felt when somebody would sing a song from the heart in a music group or sit in a group for an hour afterwards, drinking tea, reminiscing about the past and telling jokes. It's something to behold. Now, we also noticed reduced incidents, increased understanding of factors underlying behaviour that challenges among staff, and ultimately improvement in quality of life, not only for individuals but for those around them. We have also seen improvements in the area of physical ability, reawakening former sports skills in interests, and growth in the area of advocacy, developing skills in making choices and clearly communicating preferences. And next slide, please, Anya. Thank you. We've expanded our circle to do this. So outside of the MDT, we've built on partnerships in the community to include local sports partnerships, creative artists, collaborations with County Council, and also nationally with organisations and agencies, including Creative Ireland, all supporting us to explore, connect and develop ways of working. Each conversation that we have widens the circle and increases opportunities ranging from Woodlands for Health, equine assisted therapies, creative dance and music, movement, to COVID care concerts that were supported by Creative Ireland. Next slide, please, Anya. In the DOP in Waterford, Move Your Mood is an initiative which promotes physical activity, diet and lifestyle education, health screening and develops links with the community to support recovery. The initiative commenced as a week-long programme and is now integrated into the recreation and recovery timetable. The brainchild of Liz Coakley, CNS, and developed with Judith Murphy and Paul Phelan, CNM2s in the Recreation and Recovery Department in the Department of Psychiatry, it provides an opportunity for normality, for humanity in the midst of distress. It improves quality of life for service users and has positive impacts on the wider system, including staff engagement and motivation. Throughout our settings, I can see examples of the individual and organisational impact of Get Up, Get Dressed, Get Moving. And you're probably thinking of similar stories from your own work. Get Up, Get Dressed, Get Moving gives a framework. Sorry, Anya, if you want to move to the next slide. So Get Up, Get Dressed, Get Moving gives a framework to develop these. It gives a shared language and a network to connect with, to share ideas and inspiration. What I see and feel is that colleagues and I are genuinely proud of what we're doing and excited for what will happen next. This is all in the context of the reality of the high pressure environment that is working in mental health services, which has gone with the territory of that work long before COVID-19. Next slide, please, Anya. So the Get Up, Get Dressed, Get Moving campaign network is working to develop programmes that can be incorporated into existing care settings. We're looking for models of good practice. The initial stage of this programme involves assessment of baseline status in pilot areas, introduction of mobilisation strategies tailored to the needs of at-risk groups, and reassessment of that status post-implementation of strategies. So we've actually invited each CHO to propose one adult mental health inpatient unit for inclusion in this pilot programme. This will involve an audit over a 2-week period of how many people are up and dressed at 12 noon, and if not, reasons why it could be. So it could be because they were up all night, because they don't have clothes, or simply because they refuse to get up and dressed. This will not only give us a baseline for mental health units, which is not being done anywhere else, but it will also ensure that mental health is the 5th pillar, that mental health is not left behind this national initiative, and ultimately that mental health is an equal partner in the process going forward. So next slide, please, Anya. So just coming back to the story I told you earlier about the man we never hear about and what became a triumph for Edison. So the man who didn't include playback in his design. Now, it wasn't that he was trying to add the feature of playback. He actually never thought of it. He was so focused on his outcome of creating an automated dictation machine that people would speak and record their words so that we would learn to read our sound waves, that he never actually thought about trying to include playback. And this shows the value of collaboration, because imagine if he'd been working with a musician who said, that's a great idea, but it would be even better if I could hear myself play. If we surround ourselves with people who bring different perspectives, there is limitless potential. Next slide, please, Anya. So Stephen Johnson talks about the slow hunch. It's the idea that you get when there's an inkling that there's something worth exploring and you don't know why you're drawn into it. And only over time does it crystallize into something more powerful. And that resonates so well for me when I think of Get Up, Get Dressed, Get Moving, the network, and its potential for mental health services. There's no predetermined outcome, just intention. And the network provides the opportunity to collaborate professionally and across health and community settings, and ultimately connect with a global network. So next slide, please, Anya. So folks, this morning wasn't as we intentionally planned. I'm lucky that we're not attached to outcome, but it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you today. If you want any more information on anything that I spoke about, you can contact me directly. And again, Deirdre's email address will be given on the next slide as well. So we'd just like to open up for Q&A if anybody has any questions, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Denise. That was really, really wonderful, very interesting, and I mean, it's amazing looking at the pictures of those older people and the strength and the muscles at the beginning. So I'm just going to, if anybody has questions, now is your opportunity. Pop them into the questions and answers, what we call it, the section there on your, the thing that you know what I mean, it's there on the right hand side of your screen. Anya, have I missed any? I don't see any questions just at the minute, Denise.
That's okay. And again, if anybody does have any questions later on, they can certainly contact me directly and we can continue the conversation.
No questions have come in yet. Now, just to remind everyone, just to sign in, if I know we had a few people come in late, so just we have put up a link for forms, and that's just to register to receive your cert.
So just pop in your questions now while we have Denise here, and if there's anything. It's amazing the difference, Denise, it made there from what you're saying to the patients.
Absolutely.
Your services, just it sounds amazing. Yeah.
And it's just, you know, it's doing what we do, but, you know, informed by other approaches. You know, and there's an awful lot comes from that energy of, you know, a group of people working together with that common goal, you know. And it's made a significant impact, and I think that, you know, when we think about Get Up, Get Dressed, Get Moving, even in terms, I know that, you know, we're all very mindful of the role of, you know, the reduction of restraint and seclusion, as well, that there's another area for exploration there as well around the role that this can play in that regard also, you know. So if anybody would like to get involved in the network, or, you know, if they, you know, if there was a particular area of work they would like to pursue, we'd be delighted for people to make contact with myself or Deirdre in terms of becoming part of that. And as I said, it's not just a national network, but it is a global network that that we have our Irish focus, but we can benefit from examples of good practice and expertise
everywhere,
across the globe, which is quite useful.
So that sounds really great. So people can contact you then, and you'll give them, or Deirdre obviously, and you will give them advice. Is there many groups around Ireland, Denise?
In terms of the
Get Up, Get Dressed. When you say like local kind of networks and local campaigns, is there many?
Well, I think like a lot. So the Get Up, Get Dressed movement is a national network, and it's spread across the country. So you have champions across the country and representatives from agencies. So there would be people for people to link in with already, and a lot what we see is we see this within the acute hospitals, particularly in maybe the medical wards and stroke wards, and we would have had it in UHW ourselves. One of the slides that I showed of the poster asking relatives to bring in day clothes was actually for Medical 5 upstairs in UHW. So it gives you an opportunity to link in with the acute hospital, because often we can become quite siloed, can't we? Of course, even within the CHO, we can become quite siloed between mental health and disability. So this is a chance to, be cross-divisional, but also establish links with the acute hospitals and within the hospital groups, which is quite a good way to connect.
Denise, can I just jump in? It's Aisling here. Sorry for crossing over. I had a brief conversation with Deirdre last week in respect of this whole initiative. Before myself and Deirdre go back a long time. We worked actually together in Care of the Elderly when I first met Deirdre, but I won't even say how many hundreds of years ago that was. But anyway, so I know her passion, and indeed yours, and the great work that both of you are doing on a personal level. I had suggested to her, because I know in her role she had been collaborating and sharing the word, as it were, across mental health services. But we have a forthcoming publication coming out in the P&A and our newsletter, and I just thought it might be a good way of putting out a piece or a LinkedIn piece so that we can get it out to all our branches and members, and to build or contribute towards. So I think that it would be great, because as you say, network builds the strength and the motivation and I suppose the momentum really. And I think one part of this, which is, Catherine will agree with me on this, and like there is a compassion in this that is it's not necessarily what you would think of in terms of service and nursing, but this is about self-care, which of itself is compassionate care, which of itself is compassion to yourself. It's what we would do for each. Why would we not do this in services of in intellectual disability or in mental health? Because this is what we do for ourselves. We get up, we get go, and we have to remind ourselves to be compassionate to ourselves, I think, on a daily basis. And I think this is a really good I suppose way of looking at that whole piece of modeling and self-care, and
there's two pieces there, isn't there? Because one is there's a lot that we do ourselves and that we value in our own lives, and sometimes we just we need to know how to bring that into work. And how do we bring we all bring our own unique skill set to work, and how do we bring that, and how do we encourage that in others? How do we invite that in others? So it could be somebody that has experience of drama, somebody that has experience in sports, and and you would see that in Havenview, where I mentioned so many of the staff are very into sport and activity, and it's a seamless transition when it comes to something like a charity marathon, or when it comes to building in naturally to a program of increased physical activity. Now, obviously, there's a lot of what you don't see there, which is the leadership that comes from within, and those structures that are there. When you have your ADON, your CNM structure, and then when you have everybody part of a movement. That want to deliver that. So I better not say too much again. They'll get on to me for embarrassing them. But it's been a fantastic experience to be part of, and to actually, as you said, just see the difference and the impact that it has had on individuals, and also for ourselves as colleagues working together. To actually, there is that fun and the spontaneity element of it, and that in itself brings creativity.
which is great.
Well, I mean,
There's just,
the phrase,
sorry, Aisling.
Sorry, the phrase you that sticks out for me is regaining part of yourself. You said that, you know, in terms, and whilst I know you had put up, just sorry to finish, Catherine, I'll finish this. You had put up some of photos of St. Eves and Portrane or St. Senans, and I've worked in some of those places. And the one thing I'll say about them, which is interesting, is this, they came with everything, social history, you know. I mean, Ireland need not be proud of the way it behaved in lots of things in terms of historical pieces. But I will say a positive thing about places like St. Senans and St. Eves. They had lots of space. They had lots of ground. They had lots of area for that freedom of activity out there. And I sometimes think, and you know, sometimes you go into A&Es or you go into the DOPs sometimes, and I just often think that sense of space, refuge in a way, you know.
And look, absolutely, I think that's what, you know, that we need to make sure that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past, but also not to throw the baby out of the bathwater. You know, there was so much great work done, and it's been able to hold both. And be able to take the bits that we can build on. And I think absolutely that need for space, that need for
refuge.
You know. Absolutely, yeah.
An oak tree out in the grounds could be your sangre, you know, like, so I think sometimes that's not for us to do today, is build new units or anything, but I do think sometimes designers need to listen a little bit to some of, as you say, the elements that did work, you know, and space. So I'll leave it at that. Apologies, sorry.
Oh no, sorry, Aisling. I was just going to, there's a question there from Claire Flanagan, which kind of was following up on what you were talking about there. So she said, thanks for a great presentation. That's lovely to hear, Claire. Thank you. Inspiring work. What's the first step to getting started with integrating a culture of promoting physical health in mental health services for older people? So the first step to getting started with integrating a culture of promoting physical health. What's your advice there,
Sounds
Denise?
Like it's Claire.
Claire Flanagan.
No, it sounds like it's Claire. I think any person can be the first step.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Okay.
I think it's a domino effect. So I think, it'd be great if Claire wanted to link in, and we could certainly have a discussion and just kind of brainstorm, you know, what's already there, and what can be built on. I think that's the key piece. I think anybody can start this. Anyone can start the change. You don't need to wait until something else is in place. And I think as well, just to be mindful that a change in culture takes time. And to go with the process. But it sounds like she started.
So she just said here, she's another message. It would be great to have access to exercise physiologists as part of the mental health MDT. Are they usually mental health professionals with specialist training?
Yeah, so they would be sports exercise professionals that would become integrated and supported to skill up and develop and be integrated within the team. So I suppose we have opportunities now to link in with different organisations that are outside. The idea of the integrated exercise practitioner is the same as with tenancy support that we have developed now, and also with employment support, the IPS, that the person would become part of the team and work with the team, and that you would have that shared formulation. But that's not to say that a mental health professional can't train as an exercise practitioner.
Great.
It'd be a fantastic asset, actually.
Pardon?
It'd be a fantastic asset from the outset, yeah.
No, that sounds very true. And Claire has put up here for everybody that the Sports Ireland have developed a 4-week at-home exercise program for older people. So that's Sports Ireland, and she's given the link there. So that might be something of interest to people. Now, Claire Flanagan said she'll get in touch with you, Denise. So that's great.
Brilliant. Thanks, Claire. Look forward to it.
We've no second name said a great presentation, thank you. So I don't see any other questions. Now is your time if you have a last burning question before Denise goes.
Maybe just to build on what Claire has said there as well, that with Sport Ireland, so you have a local sports partnership in every area. So in Wexford, for example, it's Sport Active Wexford, and often they have a sports inclusion disability officer attached. So it could be somebody that will come to your site and support you to find different ways of engaging people in physical activity that we may not have even thought of.
Oh, that's good advice. Anya, am I missing any more questions now, or have you seen any more?
Anya, can I ask a question in relation on a practical level with the links that have been shared on the question and answer? You know, just like that's a really good resource Claire has left with, and indeed the videos. When we take that link, Anya, and we go to copy it, we can't copy out of the Q&A. Sure we can't, because we highlight it, but we can't copy it.
Oh, so you should be able to, it should be hyperlinked. So when you click on it, it should open in a web browser.
Yeah, it
but
does.
To copy and paste it, now I will be, for everyone who has signed in, you will receive a cert, and I will be sending the slides. So that will have all the links in it, and I can have the links separate as well.
Brilliant.
But just again to remind everyone to sign in, just to make sure that you receive this.
That sounds just great. So it's just 12:30. I don't see any other questions there. So I'm going to hand over to Aisling to thank Denise for her wonderful talk this morning. I'm just reminding any of you that are there. There was over 17 of you here this morning, so that's great. We hope you enjoyed it. And to remind you, you might think of Friday's session on assertiveness and nurses, and it's 11 to 12:30 again with Fionnuala McLean, and you might tell your friends. So we get a few more on Friday. So I'm going to hand back to Aisling to thank Denise. And Denise, from our point of view, thank you so much. A really informative session.
Denise, I can't thank you enough. It's interesting that we're looking at assertiveness on Friday. I think on the basis of your presentation today, that if we combine both presentations this week, asserting our way forward in a compassionate way to get up, stand up, dress up, whatever it is we're going to do.
Get moving.
It couldn't have been put together better. I know that would be Katrin thinking that in the background. So thank you, Katrin. And indeed, thank you, Anya, also, because without your support, honestly, Anya, I say you're the boss of us as always, because when it comes to this stuff.
We get there in the end. It's a learning.
Yeah, it's true though, and I think all our speakers have said that your support is great, and Anya, you hide in the background, so I like to make that. But for you, Denise, thank you for what was a very adaptive, challenging morning, because I know your colleague and partner in crime, Deirdre, wasn't able to join us today, which is a pity, and we will miss her, but we will see her again for sure. It has been a long session for you to do both sessions, to turn yourself into two people in one, and we are truly grateful for the input and the kind, compassionate way you've presented this to us. There's lots to think about, and yes, we will be in touch sharing the message, momentum, get up, stand up, dress up, whatever, you know. It's a movement for sure. So on that note, thanks once again, and best wishes, and we hope to see you shortly.
Thanks, Amelia. Thanks very much. Take care.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.